The morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse in Manhattan, casting golden streaks onto the marble kitchen counter. Maya Johnson, a 32-year-old African-American architect, sat there, her hands swiftly moving across the drawing paper. The lines of a sustainable community center emerged under her pencil, each stroke infused with her passionate energy. With her hair neatly braided and her gaze focused, Maya seemed unaware of Ethan Caldwell, her husband, standing by the door, looking at her with eyes filled with love. Ethan, a 35-year-old white American tech millionaire, still found himself surprised every day thinking that this talented and radiant woman had chosen him, and 3 years of marriage hadn't diminished his admiration for Maya. She was not just his wife, but also his partner in a dream to change the world. He had technological innovations and harmoniously friendly architectural designs. They were the perfect couple, at least in the eyes of the outside world. "The Morrison Center will be a marvel," Maya said, her voice warm, not taking her eyes off the drawing. "A place that truly serves the community, with renewable energy and green spaces. Can you imagine it, Ethan?" He walked over and wrapped his arms around her shoulders from behind, kissing softly on the top of her head. "You will change the world, one building at a time," he whispered, his voice full of pride. Maya leaned into him, her hand reaching for his, intertwining their fingers. "We will change the world," she corrected, smiling. "Your technology will fund my dreams. We are an unstoppable team." Ethan turned her chair to face him, his eyes sparkling. "And speaking of building the future," he paused, lowering his voice, filled with hope. They had been trying to have a child for the past 8 months, each month a cycle of hope and disappointment. But they never stopped dreaming or planning for the family they longed for. Dr. Clara Hayes called this morning. Ethan continued, observing Maya's expression. "The fertility consultation is set for next week. Are you worried?" Maya shook her head, fingers absent-mindedly tracing circles on his chest through his white shirt. "With you, I'm never worried," she replied softly. Ethan took her hand, bringing it to his lips for a gentle kiss. "No matter what, I want to see you holding our child, Maya. I want to see you become the wonderful mother I know you will be." At that moment, in the sun-drenched kitchen, they held each other, the warmth of the light surrounding them. They had no idea that the foundation of their perfect life was already starting to crack. A few blocks away, in the upscale office of the Johnson & Bennett architecture firm, Lauren Bennett sat behind her desk, her sharp eyes fixed on the computer screen. A close friend of Maya's since their time at Columbia University, and now a business partner, Lauren had always stood out with her bold style and persuasive ability to land clients. But today, she wasn't working on project proposals. She was reviewing a hidden folder on her computer containing photos of Maya and Ethan at a recent charity gala. They were smiling brightly, holding hands, and Ethan's gaze at Maya was pure adoration, as if she were his entire world. Lauren gripped the computer mouse, her hand turning pale. She remembered the first time she met Ethan at a technology conference in Boston, 2 years before Maya knew he existed. They had talked for hours about the future, about innovations that could change the world. Lauren felt a connection, a spark that she believed was destiny. But then, Ethan met Maya at the charity fundraiser she had organized. She saw his expression change when he heard Maya speak about building communities through sustainable architecture. Lauren stood there, a forced smile on her face, watching her heart break as Ethan fell in love right before her eyes. From that moment, she became the loyal best friend, the bridesmaid at their wedding, always smiling despite the sharp pain in her heart. But every smile from Maya, every hug from Ethan, felt like a knife. Lauren couldn't bear the thought that Maya had everything she had once dreamed of without trying. She doesn't deserve it, Lauren muttered, her gaze darkening. She opened her phone contacts and scrolled to Marcus Reed's name, a private investigator who specialized in finding evidence when needed. Her finger hovered over the call button, her heart pounding. This was a point of no return. But the image of Maya glowing next to Ethan, happiness she would never have, made her press the button. "Marcus, it's Lauren Bennett," she said, her voice calm but cold. "I need you to investigate someone very close to me." She paused, looking out the window where the busy streets of New York unfolded below. "Please find something I can use." In the penthouse, Maya stood up and pulled Ethan into the living room, where they often sat and dreamed about the future. "I just had an idea," she said, her eyes lighting up. "If the Morrison project succeeds, we could expand this model nationwide. Self-sustaining communities where everyone has a chance to thrive." Ethan smiled, pulling her down to sit on the sofa, his hand gently resting on her stomach. "You always think big, don't you?" he teased, but his voice was enthusiastic. "And our child will grow up in a better world because of their mother." Maya smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "And because of their father. Don't forget, you're the one who makes these dreams come true." They sat there, discussing projects, the child they hoped for, and the days ahead. Neither of them realized that somewhere in the city, a phone call had just been made, a plan had just been set in motion, and their fragile happiness was about to be torn apart by jealousy and deceit. In the corner office on the 40th floor of Caldwell Technologies, Ethan sat behind a walnut wood desk, his eyes fixed intently on a brown envelope. His name was written in bold, sharp letters, with no sender's address. Inside was a stack of photographs delivered this morning by an anonymous courier. Ethan had opened them out of curiosity, but now, each photo felt like a dagger stabbing his chest. The first photo showed Maya Johnson, his wife, walking into a hotel downtown. The second one captured her sitting in the corner of a coffee shop, facing a tall man Ethan didn't recognize, their gaze seemingly intimate. The third photo, which made Ethan's hands tremble, was of Maya, resting her hand on the man's arm, her smile soft as they left the hotel. The final one is Maya kissing the man's cheek right before the entrance. Ethan felt the blood rush to his head, his breathing becoming heavy. He flipped through each photo, hoping to find a detail that would deny what they screamed. Maya, the woman he loved more than himself, was betraying him. But the photos left no room for doubt. They told a clear story he didn't want to believe, but couldn't dismiss. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You should know someone who cares about you." Ethan stared at the screen, feeling like the world was tilting. He thought about the nights Maya told him she had to work late, the meetings that dragged on, the time she came home exhausted, blaming the pressure of her job. Was it all just an excuse? At Johnson & Bennett, Maya was finishing the design for the Morrison project. She smiled when she received a message from Ethan. "I'll be home early tonight. I want to talk." She replied immediately. "Sure, I miss you." She put her phone down, unaware that the toxic whispers of doubt were consuming the man she loved. Lauren Bennett walked in, her high heels clicking on the polished concrete floor. "You look radiant," she said, sitting across from Maya's desk, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Is your marriage still in the honeymoon phase?" Maya laughed, not noticing the bitterness in Lauren's tone. "Ethan and I were talking about expanding the family. Some days, I feel so happy, I can hardly believe it's real." Lauren nodded, her fingers tightening around the armrests of her chair. "That's great," she said, her voice slightly sharp. "You deserve everything, Maya." But inside, she felt suffocated. Every word Maya spoke, Every spark of light in her eyes was a reminder that Lauren would always be on the sidelines, watching the man she loved belong to someone else. That evening, Maya came home early, bringing a bottle of Ethan's favorite wine. She walked into the penthouse, calling his name, but only silence responded. She found Ethan in the living room, sitting on the sofa, the dim light casting shadows on his face, stiff and unfamiliar. The photos were in front of him, on the coffee table, spread out like a verdict. "Ethan?" Maya set the wine down, her voice filled with concern. "What's wrong? You look like you've lost everything." "Don't!" Ethan cut her off, his voice cold as ice, nothing like the man who had held her in the morning light. "Don't pretend, Maya. Don't lie anymore." Maya frowned, walking closer, then stopping when her eyes fell on the photos. Blood drained from her face, and her breath caught in her throat. "Where did these come from?" She picked up one of the photos, her hand shaking as she recognized herself with James, her cousin, at a meeting to discuss renovating Ethan's childhood home as a surprise gift. "You're the one asking me that?" Ethan said, standing up, towering and terrifying in his anger. "Where were you the nights you said you were working late? With who? Who is this man, Maya?" "Ethan, this isn't what you think." Maya stepped forward, trying to reach him, but he pulled back as if she were something toxic. "That's James, my cousin. We met to plan a surprise for you. If you'd listen to me." "Listen to you lie some more?" Ethan growled, his voice breaking with pain. "I believed you, Maya. I gave you everything. My heart, my home, my future. And this is how you repay me? I haven't betrayed you." Maya screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "These photos are distorted. Someone is trying to hurt us, Ethan. Can't you see it?" But Ethan couldn't see. He was blinded by his hurt, by the deep fear that he wasn't good enough to keep Maya forever. "I want a divorce," he said, his voice flat, as if those words didn't tear both their hearts apart. "I want you out of my house, out of my company, out of my life." Maya froze, her breath catching in her throat. She looked at the man who had promised to love her forever, now looking at her like a stranger. "Ethan, I love you," she whispered, her voice broken. "I've never loved anyone else but you. Please, believe me." But Ethan turned away, walking toward the bedroom, leaving Maya in the living room, clutching herself as her world crumbled. She picked up a photo, looking at the moment she kissed James on the cheek. A familial gesture, meaningless, and realized that her truth no longer mattered. Ethan had chosen to believe the lies. That night, Maya packed her things, taking only what she needed. She left the penthouse, the place that had once been their home, with a broken heart. When the door closed behind her, she didn't know she was carrying a tiny life within her, a spark that would soon become why she kept going. In her darkened office, Lauren Bennett sat alone, her phone lighting up with a message from Marcus Reed. Photos delivered to Caldwell. "He's seen them," Lauren smiled, but it was an empty smile. She had achieved what she wanted. Maya was out of the game. But why did her heart still ache so much? She took a sip of wine, trying to shake off the guilt creeping into her mind. "This is just the beginning," she told herself. "Now he'll see that I'm the only one who truly cares." The small studio apartment in Brooklyn was all that Maya Johnson could afford after the divorce. The walls were patched with peeling white paint, the single bed creaked, and a tiny kitchen counter was all that made up her new world. But today, in the dim light of the morning, Maya sat on the floor, holding a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines appeared clearly, confirming that her life, though shattered, was still moving forward. She placed a hand on her stomach, where a tiny life was growing, her child, and Ethan Caldwell, the man who once promised to be with her forever. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but not because of sadness. "It's just you and me, okay?" she whispered, her voice trembling but determined. Maya knew she had to be strong, not just for herself, but for this child. But the thought of telling Ethan made her heart ache. His last words, "I want you out of my life," still echoed in her mind. She couldn't let her child face rejection the way she had. Maya stood up, wiped her tears, and looked at herself in the cracked mirror hanging on the wall. The woman in the mirror looked tired, but her eyes burned with an unyielding fire. She had lost everything: Johnson and Bennett, her reputation, and the man she loved. But she would not lose herself. She put on a black polo shirt from Prestige Catering, tied her hair neatly, and walked out of the apartment, ready for a long workday. Ethan sat in his office at Caldwell Technologies in Manhattan, looking at the city skyline. The space around him, Maya's paintings that once hung on the walls, the coffee mug she always used, had disappeared, leaving behind cold emptiness. He tried to focus on the financial report, but his mind kept drifting to the photos, to Maya's pained face as she begged him to believe her. He had chosen not to, and now the emptiness in his chest was the price he had to pay. Lauren Bennett walked in, carrying a cup of coffee and a soft smile. "You look exhausted," she said, placing the cup on the desk. "Have you had breakfast?" Ethan shook his head, his gaze distant. Lauren sat down across from him, her voice soft and comforting. "Ethan, you don't deserve to suffer like this. Maya, she doesn't deserve you. You deserve someone who will be loyal, someone who truly loves you." Ethan nodded, but Lauren's words felt like distant echoes. He couldn't deny that she had been by his side through the worst of times, listening to him, comforting him when the pain of betrayal, that he thought was real, weighed him down. With her intelligence and devotion, Lauren slowly became his only support in the storm. But Lauren didn't know that Ethan still dreamed of Maya every night. He dreamed of her smile and warm voice when they discussed the future. He wondered if he was wrong, but then pushed the thought away. The photos couldn't lie, or could they? Maya worked tirelessly. In the morning, she served at a cafe in Soho, memorizing regular customers' names and offering a smile despite her aching legs. In the afternoon, she cleaned offices, kneeling on the floor to scrub every stain. In the evening, she worked at upscale events, avoiding the gazes of those who once knew her as a renowned architect. Each day was a battle for survival, but Maya never complained. She did it all for the child growing inside her. One evening, after working at a wedding, Maya sat in the staff break room, her hand on her belly. She felt a light kick, the first one, and her heart stopped. "You're doing well, aren't you?" she whispered, smiling through her tears. "I'll give you everything, I promise." But the harsh reality remained. Her architecture firm had collapsed when the accounts were frozen during the divorce. Former clients turned their backs, swayed by rumors about the affair scandal. Maya had once been a rising star in the industry, but now she was just an anonymous waitress, pregnant and alone. Lauren stood in front of a mirror in her luxurious apartment overlooking Central Park, holding a glass of wine. She had won the first round. Maya was out of the picture, and Ethan relied on her. But why did she still feel empty? She scrolled through social media and found an old article about Maya's success, with a picture of her and Ethan at a project launch. Lauren slammed the glass down on the table, red wine splashing everywhere. She opened her phone and saw a message from Marcus Reed. No further evidence on Johnson. She lives a closed life, only working and going home. Lauren frowned. She wanted more. something to ensure Maya would never come back. "Keep watching," she replied. "I need to know everything about her." Lauren sat down on the couch, her eyes distant. She remembered the days at Columbia when she and Maya were best friends, sharing every secret. But since Ethan appeared, Maya had inadvertently taken the spotlight from her. Lauren couldn't forgive that. She would do anything to have Ethan, even if it meant destroying the person who had once been her closest friend. Maya returned to her apartment at midnight, her feet swollen and her belly heavy. She sat on the bed and opened an old notebook where she had once sketched out architectural dreams. She drew a new sketch, a small, cozy house where she and her child could build a new life. "One day," she whispered, her hand caressing the page. She didn't know that, on the other side of the city, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the image of Maya. He picked up his phone, scrolling to her number, his finger hovering over the call button. But then he put it down, telling himself she had betrayed him, that he had to move on. And Lauren, in her apartment, smiled as she received a new message from Marcus. "Johnson is pregnant. About 3 months." She gripped the phone tightly, her eyes gleaming with a malicious glint. She needed this final blow to ensure Maya would never return. Lauren Bennett stood in her luxurious apartment, gazing at Central Park through the large glass window. The lights of New York City sparkled below, but everything felt dark and chaotic inside her. On the coffee table in front of her was a half-drunk glass of wine, next to a phone lit up with a new message from Marcus Reed. "Johnson works 3 shifts daily. About 4 months pregnant. No contact with Caldwell." Lauren tightened her grip on the glass, her fingers trembling slightly. She had achieved what she wanted. Maya was pushed out of Ethan's life. But why did she still feel like she was losing? She sat down on the sofa, opened her laptop, and scrolled through an old photo album from her Columbia University days. The photos showed her and Maya laughing brightly, hand in hand, like sisters. They had shared every secret, from career dreams to heartbreaks. Lauren remembered introducing Maya at the charity fundraiser where Ethan first met her. She smiled and clapped as Ethan and Maya chatted, never realizing that this was the beginning of her downfall. Lauren closed the laptop, her gaze heavy. She had loved Ethan since they first met at a technology conference in Boston, 2 years before Maya knew of him. They talked about innovations and dreams of changing the world, and Lauren felt a connection she had never felt with anyone else. She believed it was fate. But then Ethan met Maya, and his eyes were only for her. Lauren became the outsider, watching their love bloom, every happy moment like a dagger to her heart. She stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked at herself. The woman in the mirror was beautiful and successful, but her eyes were empty. "You did the right thing," she whispered, but her voice faltered. She remembered the moment Maya cried, pleading with Ethan to believe her, her eyes filled with pain. Lauren had seen Marcus's fake photos, knowing they were just distorted truths, but she had still chosen to send them to Ethan. She wanted Maya to disappear and wanted Ethan to look at her the way he looked at her. But now, with Maya having lost everything, Lauren didn't feel victorious. She felt like a thief, taking something that didn't belong to her. She texted Marcus back, "Keep following. I need to know if she contacts anyone." She couldn't let Maya come back or tell Ethan the truth. She had gone too far to stop now. In her small Brooklyn apartment, Maya Johnson sat on the bed, her hand resting on her now visible pregnant belly. She had just finished her shift at Gabriel's Cafe, where she served with a forced smile, despite her swollen feet. In the afternoon, she cleaned offices. Tonight, she worked at a charity event. Every day was a battle, but Maya didn't allow herself to give up. She opened an old notebook, sketching a design for a sustainable housing project, the dream she still held onto, despite having no company or reputation left. She looked at the only photo she kept from her marriage, her and Ethan at their wedding, smiling brightly. She touched his face in the picture, her heart aching. "You'll have your father's eyes," she whispered, smiling sadly. She had thought about calling Ethan and telling him about the baby, but each time she picked up the phone, she remembered the cold look in his eyes the night they parted. She couldn't bear it if he rejected her child too. Maya stood up, dressed in her serving uniform, her hair neatly braided. She looked at herself in the mirror, no longer the architect who appeared on magazine covers, but a future mother. Firm. "We'll be okay," she said to her belly, then walked out of the apartment, facing another day in the dark. At Caldwell Technologies, Ethan sat in his office, staring at a new contract, but unable to focus. He had tried to move forward and concentrate on work, but every corner of the office reminded him of Maya. The desk where she once sat sketching, the bookshelf where she kept her architectural books. All of it was empty. Lauren walked in, carrying a stack of documents. "Here's the report for the new energy project," she said, her voice soft. "Would you like to take a look?" Ethan nodded, but his gaze was distant. "Thanks, Lauren," he said, his voice weary. She stopped, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to torture yourself, Ethan. Maya chose her path. You deserve happiness." Ethan looked at her, a mix of gratitude and unease. Lauren had been by his side through the worst months, listening to him complain and helping him get through the pain. But there was something in her voice, a gentle pressure, that made him wonder if he was missing something. He remembered the moment Maya begged him to believe her, her voice breaking. Was he wrong not to give her a chance to explain? "I need some air," Ethan said, standing up. He left the office, walking down the avenue, his mind in turmoil. He stopped in front of a building that Maya had designed, a community center with glass walls and a green roof. He touched the plaque with her name, Maya Johnson's design. His heart tightened. Did he know the woman he once loved? Lauren opened a new bottle of wine in her apartment, but didn't drink. She sat down, opened her email, and reviewed the photos Marcus had sent. One showed Maya leaving work, her pregnant belly visible, her face tired but determined. Lauren felt a surge of anger mixed with guilt. She muttered that she didn't deserve Ethan's child, but her voice quivered. She remembered when Maya had comforted her after being dumped by her ex, holding her and saying, "You deserve someone who loves you truly." At that moment, Lauren had felt a genuine friendship, but now she had betrayed it out of jealousy. She closed the laptop, telling herself there was no other choice. "Ethan is mine," she said, her voice hard, "and I won't let her take him from me again." The Grand Meridian Hotel shone like a fairy tale under the glow of crystal chandeliers. Tables were covered in white silk cloths, white and gold rosés stacked in towers, creating an air of luxury for the wedding that the press had dubbed Event of the Year. In a sleek black tuxedo, Ethan Caldwell stood beside Lauren Bennett, now his bride, in an extravagant wedding gown adorned with pearls. But as he scanned the crowd of 200 guests, the powerful elite of New York, his heart was empty. This marriage was a choice of reason, not of the heart. Lauren held Ethan's hand, her radiant smile concealing her insecurity. After months of manipulation and lies, she had achieved what she wanted. Ethan was hers. But his gaze, though gentle, was never as fiery as when he looked at Maya. She tightened her grip on his hand to keep him from drifting away. Maya Johnson adjusted her black prestige catering polo in the hotel kitchen to hide her 5-month-old pregnancy belly. Each shift was now a challenge, with back pain and swollen feet. But she needed the money to prepare for the child soon to be born. She tied her hair into a neat braid, put on her apron, and checked the champagne tray. Sofia Castellano, the catering manager, gave her orders. Johnson, serve at the main table. Caldwell Bennett wedding, VIP guests, no mistakes. The name Caldwell made Maya's heart stop. She told herself it might be a coincidence. New York was full of wealthy people with that last name. But deep down, she knew the truth. This was Ethan's wedding. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. "I'll be invisible," she told herself, pulling her server cap low, hoping no one would recognize the architect who once graced magazines, now reduced to a server. The wedding was lively, with laughter and clinking glasses blending into the soft jazz music. Maya moved through the crowd, pouring champagne and clearing plates, her eyes avoiding the main table where Ethan and Lauren sat. But she couldn't help but glance. Ethan looked different, older, his smile forced, no longer the man who once laughed joyously beside her. In her wedding dress, Lauren was radiant, but her eyes were sharp, scanning the room as though afraid of losing something. "Another glass of rosé, please," an older guest called, snapping Maya out of her thoughts. She nodded, smiling, and worked with the efficiency honed over months. But with every step, every movement, she felt the child in her belly, a reminder of the lost love. She touched her stomach, whispering, "Just a little longer, baby. Mommy will make it." Ethan gave his thank you speech at the main table, his voice polite and even. "Thank you all for coming to share this special day with us." He paused as a soft, familiar laugh echoed from the distance. That laugh was heartbreakingly familiar, like a melody from the past. He scanned the crowd, his heart racing, not understanding why. Then he saw her. Not the face immediately, but the figure. The way Maya stood, her shoulders slightly slumped from fatigue, but still graceful despite her pregnancy. Ethan froze, the champagne glass slipping from his hand and shattering on the floor, causing nearby conversations to halt. Maya was pregnant. It was unmistakable, with her belly visible under the black uniform. He quickly did the math. 5 months. The baby could be his. "Ethan?" Lauren called, her voice anxious. "Are you okay?" But he didn't hear her. All he saw was Maya, his ex-wife, serving at his wedding. It felt like a lightning strike. His mind spun with questions. Why was she here? Why was she pregnant? And why did his heart feel like it was breaking all over again? Maya heard the glass shatter, a strange sensation making her look up. Her eyes met Ethan's across the crowd, and the entire banquet hall seemed to vanish at that moment. 6 months of pain, anger, and a shattered heart passed between them in a single glance. Ethan was pale, his eyes dropping to her pregnant belly, then returning to her face. She saw the shock, the realization, and the thousands of questions in his eyes. Lauren, following Ethan's gaze, saw Maya. Her face contorted from worry to anger. "What is she doing here?" She hissed loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Her perfect bride's smile vanished, replaced by raw jealousy. Maya felt the room spin. Standing too long, the emotional pressure and exhaustion made her dizzy. She tried to put the champagne tray down and find something to lean on, but her legs buckled. She collapsed onto the marble floor, the tray crashing, causing the entire banquet hall to go silent. The crowd gasped, stepping back, while Maya lay there, her server cap askew, her pregnant belly exposed. Ethan reacted instantly, pushing through the crowd and shoving surprised guests aside. "Call an ambulance!" he shouted, kneeling beside Maya, his hands hovering, not daring to touch her. "Maya, are you okay? Please, say something." He looked at her, his face pale, and for the first time in 6 months, he saw the exhaustion, the pain in her eyes. Sofia Castellano tried to intervene. "Sir, please step back. We'll handle our staff." But Ethan growled. "She's not just staff. She's—" He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. What was she? His ex-wife? The woman he had destroyed by not trusting her? The mother of a child that might be his? Lauren stood motionless at the main table, her wedding dress now a mockery. "Ethan, come back here," she called, her voice sharp. But he didn't listen. He knelt beside Maya, watching her chest rise and fall weakly, clearly seeing how much weight she had lost, the dark circles under her eyes from exhaustion. What had happened to the woman who once shone like sunlight? The ambulance arrived within minutes, and medical staff quickly assessed Maya. Ethan stood by, asking repeatedly, "Is she okay? What about the baby?" A female nurse looked at him, her gaze soft. "Are you a relative?" Ethan hesitated. He wasn't a legal relative anymore. He had ensured that through the divorce. But looking at Maya unconscious, her hands still protectively resting on her belly, he whispered, "I'm the father of the baby." The nurse nodded, allowing him to accompany the ambulance. As the ambulance sped off, sirens blaring, Ethan held Maya's hand, praying for the first time in months. Lauren stood back in the banquet hall amidst the whispers and curious looks of the guests. Her perfect wedding day had crumbled, and the woman she had tried to eliminate was now the center of everything. The harsh white light of the emergency room at Mercy General Hospital made everything seem stark and severe. Ethan Caldwell sat on a hard plastic chair, still wearing his wrinkled tuxedo from the wedding, the tie loose around his neck. He stared at the floor, his hands gripping his knees tightly, his mind spinning with the image of Maya Johnson collapsing at the wedding reception. She was pregnant, 5 months, according to his quick calculation. The child could be his. But why hadn't she told him? And why was she, a once prominent architect, now serving at his wedding? Lauren Bennett, still in her magnificent wedding dress, but now feeling like a hollow shell, sat a few chairs away, her hands clutching her purse tightly. Her mother, Catherine Bennett, whispered soothing words, but Lauren didn't respond. She watched Ethan, her eyes filled with concern and despair. Her wedding day, the dream she had manipulated her way into, had shattered when Maya appeared like a ghost from the past. Dr. Clara Hayes, the fertility specialist who had assisted Ethan and Maya on their journey to conceive, stepped out of the treatment area. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, her voice professional but gentle. "Ms. Johnson is stable. She's severely dehydrated and exhausted, but we've given her fluids, and she's recovering. The baby is healthy, with a stable heartbeat." Ethan jumped to his feet, his heart racing. "Is she awake? Can I see her?" Dr. Hayes nodded. "She's awake but very weak. Let her rest. And you should know she's under a lot of stress, which is not suitable for the pregnancy." Ethan nodded, but his mind was in chaos. He looked at Lauren, still sitting silently, and an uneasy feeling began to creep in. Something wasn't right, but he couldn't pinpoint it. In the hospital room, Maya lay on the bed, an IV drip attached to her arm. She was small and fragile beneath the fluorescent light, but her eyes remained sharp, even if tired. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling the gentle thrum of her child, the only reason she kept fighting through the months of pain. She had never imagined encountering Ethan like this at his wedding to Lauren, the woman who had once been her closest friend. The door to the room opened, and Ethan walked in, looking awkward. "Maya," he said, his voice hoarse. Are you okay?" She looked at him, her emotions a mix of confusion and hurt. This man had once been her whole world, but now he was Lauren's husband, who had watched her life fall apart. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice calm but distant. Her hand still protected her belly like an invisible shield. Ethan stood by the bed, his gaze falling to her belly. When did you find out you were pregnant? He asked, his voice trembling. Maya looked directly at him, not avoiding his gaze a few days after the divorce. The baby was conceived last week when we were together. Before you believed those photos, you called me a liar. Her words hit Ethan like a punch to the chest. He stepped back, sitting in a chair, his hands clutching his head. Why didn't you tell me? Maya, this could be my baby. Because you made it clear you wanted me out of your life, she replied, her voice sharp but full of pain. You looked at me like garbage that night, Ethan. I wouldn't let my child be treated like that. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but the door to the room swung open. Lauren stepped in, her wedding dress sweeping across the floor, her face pale. Ethan, she said, her voice trembling, I need to talk with both of you. Maya furrowed her brow, and Ethan looked at Lauren, the unease becoming clearer. He said, Lauren, now is not the time. But she interrupted. Now is the perfect time, she replied, her hands shaking as she opened her purse and pulled out a fake pregnancy test she had purchased online, planning to use it to deceive Ethan after their honeymoon. She placed it on the table next to the bed, her gaze wavering between Ethan and Maya. I'm not pregnant, she said, her voice breaking. I was never pregnant. I was going to use this to lie to you, Ethan. And the photos of Maya, I fabricated all of them. Silence descended upon the room, heavy like a storm. Ethan looked at the pregnancy test, then at Lauren, as if she were a stranger. What are you saying? He whispered, his voice hoarse. Lauren cried, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I hired Marcus Reed to follow Maya. When he didn't find anything, I took the photos of her meeting her cousin, James, and distorted them. I faked emails and bribed mutual friends to lie. I did all of this because I love you, Ethan. I loved you before she ever showed up. Maya let out a pained sound, not physical, but from her soul. She looked at Lauren, the woman who had once been her best friend, the one she had trusted. You destroyed my marriage out of jealousy? She asked, her voice trembling. You made me lose everything. My career, reputation, home, just because you wanted him? Lauren lowered her head, unable to look Maya in the eye. I thought if you disappeared, he'd see me. I could make him love me the way he loved you. But I was wrong. Ethan stood up, his face pale, his eyes shifting from shock to anger. 6 months, he said, his voice low but sharp. For 6 months, I lived in hell, believing the woman I loved had betrayed me. For 6 months, I blamed myself for being a fool. And it was all a lie? Lauren sobbed. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't want to hurt you. I just wanted... Enough! Ethan cut her off, his voice booming like thunder. He turned to Maya, his gaze filled with regret. Maya, I don't know what to say. I was wrong. I destroyed everything because I didn't trust you. Maya looked at him, silent tears streaming down her face. Trust or not, Ethan, it was your choice. You chose to believe her over me. And now? What does the truth change? Ethan had no answer. He turned toward the door whispering, I need air. He left the room, leaving Maya and Lauren in an agonizing silence. Lauren sat down in the chair, her wedding dress crumpled around her. I'm sorry, Maya, she said, her voice weak. I know apologies can't fix anything, but I regret it. Maya looked at her, her gaze a mixture of anger and exhaustion. Why are you saying this now, after you've taken everything from me? Lauren lowered her head. Because I saw the way Ethan looked at you tonight when you fell. He's never looked at me like that, no matter how hard I tried. I realized I could never win. Maya said nothing. She just touched her belly and felt her child. Lauren stood up, walked toward the door, and left Maya alone with the heartbreaking truth and wounds that couldn't be healed immediately. The gray sky of New York was drizzly as Ethan Caldwell walked out of Mercy General Hospital, his wedding tuxedo now soaked through. The night before, Lauren Bennett had confessed everything. The fake photos and the lies she had fabricated to destroy his marriage to Maya Johnson. The truth hit like a blade, cutting into Ethan's trust, not in Maya, but himself. He had chosen to doubt the woman he loved, pushing her into darkness, and now she was carrying his child, fighting the world alone. Ethan sat in the car, watching the rain slide down the windshield. He wanted to return to the hospital, fall to his knees, and beg Maya for forgiveness, but her words echoed in his mind. Trust or not, it was your choice, Ethan. You chose to believe her over me. She was right. He had made the wrong choice, and now, no apology could erase the 6 months of suffering she had endured. The next day, Maya was discharged from the hospital. She returned to her small studio apartment in Brooklyn, carrying a hospital bag and a heavy heart. She sat on the bed, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the gentle kicks of her daughter. "I won't let you suffer," she whispered, her voice steady. But deep inside, she struggled. Lauren's confession had exonerated her, but it didn't erase the pain of Ethan turning his back on her. She wanted to believe he could change, but the fear of being betrayed again made her build up a protective wall. Ethan began his journey of redemption with a call to Dr. Clara Hayes, not as a fertility specialist, but as a therapist. In her warm office, filled with abstract paintings and the faint scent of lavender oil, Ethan sat across from her, gripping the chair tightly. "I've destroyed my marriage," he said, his voice hoarse. "I didn't trust Maya, and now she's pregnant with my child, living in poverty because of me." Clara looked at him, her gaze non-judgmental. "Why did you believe those photos instead of your wife?" she asked. Ethan hesitated, then sighed. "Because I feared losing her, Maya. She's too wonderful, too radiant. I always thought one day she'd realize I wasn't good enough. When I saw those photos, I thought my fear had come true." Clara nodded. "Fear can lead us to destroy the most precious things. Your journey is learning to trust, not just Maya, but yourself." Ethan left the therapy session with a small glimmer of hope. He wanted to prove that he had changed through actions, not just words. He sent a bouquet of sunflowers, Maya's favorite flowers, to her apartment with a note. "I was wrong, Maya. I will never stop trying to make it right." But the flowers were returned that afternoon with Maya's note. "Don't insult me with these gestures." The rejection hit him like a punch, but Ethan didn't give up. He discovered that Maya's medical bills had been sent to collections after she lost her insurance following the divorce. He paid them immediately, ensuring that all her pregnancy-related costs would be covered. But when Dr. Hayes mentioned the anonymous sponsor during a checkup, Maya became furious. That afternoon, Maya, still in her serving uniform, walked into Ethan's office at Caldwell Technologies. She pushed past his assistant, Lorelei Sinclair, and stood before his desk, her gaze burning. "You can't repurchase me, Ethan," she said, tossing a check onto the desk, the entirety of her savings. "This is your money. I don't need it." Ethan stood up, his heart aching as he saw how thin she had become, her pregnant belly visible under the polo shirt. "Maya, you need that money. Our child needs proper medical care. My daughter will be cared for through the support program," she replied, her voice cold. She doesn't need a father who thinks he can buy forgiveness like stocks. I'm not trying to buy forgiveness, Ethan said, stepping closer. I'm trying to take responsibility for what I've done. You wouldn't live like this if I hadn't destroyed your career. Maya looked at him, her eyes a mix of anger and hurt. If you had trusted me, we wouldn't be standing here, she said, her voice shaking. She turned to leave, stopping at the door. Stop doing this, Ethan. What's broken between us can't be fixed with flowers or money. She walked out, leaving Ethan standing there, feeling powerless. He realized that redemption wasn't about grand gestures. It was a long journey to prove he could be trusted. Maya sat on the bed in her apartment, her hand resting on her belly. She thought about Ethan, the look of regret in his eyes, his trembling voice when he spoke about their child. Part of her wanted to believe him and let him back into her and their child's lives. But then she remembered the night he demanded a divorce, his eyes like daggers. She couldn't let herself or her child be hurt again. She opened her notebook, sketching a new design, a community school with a green playground. She told her child that Mommy would someday build everything back. Just me. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to therapy. Ethan, I pushed her further away, he told Clara, his voice tired. Helping her was right, but she saw it as an insult. Clara nodded. Maya needs to see you change over time, not through immediate actions. She's afraid to trust you because her trust was broken. You need to be patient. Ethan nodded, determined. He wouldn't give up, no matter how long it took. He started taking notes on Clara's lesson, facing his fears and building trust and love without letting doubt take over. He knew the journey of redemption had only just begun, and he had to become the man worthy of Maya and their child. The October rain drizzled over the streets of Brooklyn, casting a thin layer of water on the windows of Maya Johnson's studio apartment. At 34 weeks pregnant, her belly had grown round, making each step heavy. She stood before the small bathroom mirror, gently rubbing her stomach, feeling the strong kicks of her daughter. Good morning, Grace, she whispered, smiling. Do you want to hear about a house with green gardens today? She talked to her baby daily to keep her spirits up through long shifts and loneliness. Maya wore her Gabriel's Cafe uniform, her hair tightly braided, and prepared for the morning shift. She had grown accustomed to this routine, serving coffee in the mornings, cleaning offices in the afternoons, and working events at night when her health allowed. Every penny she earned was for Grace, a crib, diapers, and dreams of a better future. But last night, she dreamed of Ethan Caldwell, his regretful eyes in the hospital. She pushed the thought away, reminding herself that trust had been shattered and wasn't easy to rebuild. A few blocks away, Ethan sat in the therapy office of Dr. Clara Hayes, the soft light from the desk lamp illuminating his face, a far cry from the man he was 6 months ago. I've tried apologizing to Maya, he said, his voice low. I sent flowers and paid medical bills, but she didn't want anything from me. I understand. I destroyed her trust, but I don't know how to make it right. Clara looked at him, her gaze sympathetic yet sharp. Ethan, repairing trust isn't about giving gifts or paying debts. It requires time, consistency, and respecting her boundaries. Why do you feel the need to act immediately? Ethan hesitated, then sighed, because I was afraid of losing her forever. And my child. I've missed too much already. Then start by proving that you can respect her, Clara said. Sometimes, loving someone means stepping back so they can feel safe before they open up again. Ethan nodded, taking her advice to heart. He decided not to show up at the cafe or Maya's apartment anymore, even though his heart urged him to. Instead, he enrolled in a prenatal class at Mercy General Hospital, sitting in the back row, taking notes on newborn care and breathing techniques for labor. He wanted to be prepared for the day Grace was born, even though he didn't know if Maya would allow him to be there. One late afternoon, Maya finished her cleaning shift and strolled along the wet sidewalk. A sharp pain in her back made her stop, leaning against the wall of a building, holding her stomach. Just Braxton Hicks, she told herself, recalling Dr. Hayes's words about false contractions. But as she continued walking, the pain became more regular, every 5 minutes, stronger. She breathed deeply, trying to stay calm, but fear crept in. Grace wasn't ready to be born. 34 weeks was too early. Maya tried to rest at her apartment, turning on the TV to distract herself, but the contractions wouldn't stop. She called the emergency line for Dr. Hayes. "It looks like preterm labor," the nurse said. "You should come to the hospital immediately. We need to monitor both you and the baby." Maya looked around her empty apartment, her heart racing. The hospital bag was already packed, but she had no one to call. She thought of Ethan, but the fear of rejection held her back. Instead, she called a taxi and made her way to Mercy General alone, clutching her stomach, praying for grace. At the hospital, Maya was wheeled into the delivery room, connected to monitors for the baby's heartbeat and contractions. Dr. Hayes said the baby is showing signs of mild distress, reviewing the charts. "We'll give you medication to stop the contractions and keep you here for observation." Maya nodded, trying to suppress the fear. "Is there anyone you'd like to call?" Nurse Maya Chen asked. "The father? A relative?" "No," Maya replied quickly. "Just me." But those words made her feel lonelier than ever. She clasped her hands together, thinking of Grace, and told herself to be strong. Meanwhile, Ethan attended a prenatal tour at Mercy General, part of his prenatal class. He walked with the group, listening as Nurse Celestine Parker explained the labor process. But as the group passed the triage area, he caught a glimpse of Maya being wheeled into the delivery room, her braided hair and visible pregnant belly unmistakable. His heart stopped. "Excuse me," he said to Celestine, stepping away from the group. "I have an emergency." He rushed after Maya's wheelchair, but the delivery ward doors closed, and security stopped him. "Only family members are allowed," they said. Ethan stood outside, helpless, calling his lawyer and best friend, Sterling Payton. "Maya's in the hospital," he said, his voice shaky. "I think she's in labor, but they won't let me in." "How is she?" Sterling asked, his voice concerned. "I don't know," Ethan replied, pacing the waiting room. "They won't give me any information because I'm not family." "Sterling, if anything happens to her or my child—" "Don't think negatively," Sterling cut in. "Just be there, ready if she needs you. That's the best you can do right now." Ethan sat in the waiting room chair, his head bowed, his hands trembling. He remembered the moment Maya fell at the wedding, her eyes full of hurt. He had failed her once, and now all he wanted was to be near her, even if only in the shadows. In the middle of the night, Nurse Chen stepped out. "Ms. Johnson is stable," she told Ethan, recognizing him from the wedding. "The contractions have stopped, but we're keeping her overnight. She hasn't requested anyone, but you can stay if you want." Ethan nodded, relief mixed with pain. He sat in the waiting room, the soft light from the window casting shadows on his face. He didn't sleep, only thinking about Maya, Grace, and the man he needed to become worthy of them. In the hospital room, Maya lay in the dark, her hand resting on her belly, feeling Grace's peaceful movements. She heard the nurse mention Ethan, that he was in the waiting room. She didn't know how she felt, angry, sad, or a tiny spark of hope. "He's here, Grace," she whispered, "but I don't know if I should trust him." She closed her eyes, letting the darkness embrace her, carrying fear and hope. Sterling Payton's law office in downtown Manhattan exuded authority with its large wooden conference table and windows overlooking the city skyline. Ethan Caldwell sat at one end of the table, his gaze resolute, yet burdened with regret. In front of him lay a thick file containing the evidence collected by private investigator Marcus Reed over the past 3 weeks. Evidence that would expose the full extent of Lauren Bennett's deceit. A large screen had been set up at the end of the table, ready for a video connection with Maya Johnson, who couldn't be present due to being 36 weeks pregnant. Lauren entered, no longer with the confident demeanor she once had. Her hair was disheveled, her face bare, looking like a shadow of the woman who had once dazzled in her wedding dress. She sat down, avoiding Ethan and Sterling's gazes. "Thank you for coming," Sterling said, his tone professional. "We want to discuss the findings regarding Mr. Caldwell and Ms. Johnson's divorce." The screen flickered to life, revealing Maya's face. She sat in her small Brooklyn apartment, her hand resting on her belly, her eyes tired but sharp. "Hello, Lauren," she said, her voice calm but full of strength. "Ethan says you have something to say beyond what you admitted at the hospital." Lauren lowered her head, her hand gripping the edge of the table. "Hello, Maya," she whispered, not daring to look at the screen. Ethan had hired Marcus Reed right after Lauren's confession at the hospital. He needed irrefutable proof, not just to clear Maya's name, but to make her understand that her pain was not her fault. Marcus, with his extensive experience, had gathered a damning dossier, a receipt for the purchase of a fake pregnancy test from a prank website, Lauren's web browsing history on her company computer showing her efforts to distort photos, a copy of the payment to Marcus from 2 years ago when she hired him to spy on Maya, and most importantly, a text message between Lauren and her sister, Rebecca Bennett, who had provided the evidence after being unable to bear the guilt. Sterling opened the file, his voice steady but sharp. "Ms. Bennett, here is the receipt for the fake pregnancy test, which you intended to use to deceive Mr. Caldwell after the honeymoon. Do you confirm this?" Lauren nodded, her voice hoarse. "Yes." Sterling continued, displaying a message from Lauren to Rebecca. "It's done. Ethan believes every photo. Maya is destroyed, and he's free. Now I need to be the one to comfort him." He looked at Lauren. "You hired Marcus Reed to follow Ms. Johnson. When you couldn't find evidence of infidelity, you manipulated photos of her with her cousin James, didn't you?" "Yes," Lauren whispered, tears streaming down her face. "And the fake email, showing that Ms. Johnson intended to leave Mr. Caldwell?" Sterling presented a printout of the email. "Yes," Lauren replied, her voice breaking. Maya, through the screen, silently cried. Not tears of pain, but of release from being vindicated. She looked at Lauren, her gaze a mixture of anger and sorrow. "Why, Lauren?" she asked, her voice low. "We were best friends. I trusted you more than anyone. Why did you want to destroy me?" Lauren finally looked up, meeting Maya's face full of regret. "Because I loved Ethan before you did," she said, trembling. "I met him first at a tech conference. I thought we had a connection. But then you came, with your grand ideas and passion, and he only saw you. I became invisible." "So you decided to make me invisible?" Maya asked, her hand tightening around her belly. Lauren sobbed uncontrollably. "I thought if you disappeared, he'd choose me. I was wrong, Maya. I saw the way he rushed to your side at the wedding, the way he looked at you in the hospital. I never got that look, no matter how hard I tried." Ethan, silent until then, finally spoke, his voice low but sharp. "Lauren, you didn't just destroy my marriage. You destroyed Maya's career, her reputation, her self-esteem. You let her live in poverty, pregnant with my child, while I was deceived into thinking she betrayed me. I'm to blame too. But you made me an accomplice in hurting the woman I loved most. Lauren bowed her head, unable to respond. Sterling continued, this evidence will be passed to the legal team. Your actions could lead to civil lawsuits for defamation, emotional distress, and interference with business relations. The financial damages could be substantial. I understand, Lauren said weakly. I'll cooperate fully. Ethan presented one final document. I've prepared a settlement for Maya, he said. Full compensation for the assets she lost in the divorce, plus reimbursement for lost income, damaged reputation, and emotional distress. This isn't charity, Maya. This is justice. Through the screen, Maya hesitated, her gaze wavering. Ethan, I don't want your money, she said. I've made it on my own. This is for Grace, Ethan replied, his voice gentle but firm. Our child deserves a good start, and you deserve to get back what was taken from you. Maya remained silent, then nodded. For her, I accept. Lauren stood up, her eyes empty. I'm sorry, both of you, she said, her voice cracking. I know it can't fix anything, but I truly regret it. She left the room, leaving behind a heavy silence. After the meeting, Ethan remained seated, looking at Maya through the screen. How do you feel? He asked, his voice soft. Vindicated, Maya replied, her hand on her belly. For the last 6 months, I wondered if I did something wrong or if the issues in our marriage were because of me. Now I know they weren't. But the truth doesn't erase the pain, Ethan. It doesn't erase the fact that you chose to believe her instead of me. Ethan nodded, accepting the painful truth. I failed you, Maya. I let fear to overpower love and let doubt destroy trust. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I want to prove that I am changing. Maya looked at him, her gaze searching. Change is a significant promise, Ethan, and I don't know if I can trust promises anymore. I understand, he said, but I won't give up. For you, for Grace, and myself. The call ended, and Maya sat alone in her apartment, feeling Grace kick strongly. What do you think, baby? She whispered. Can your dad change? She had no answer but felt a small spark of hope for the first time in months. Though small, Maya Johnson's studio apartment in Brooklyn still carried the warmth of her presence. Architectural sketches were scattered across the kitchen table beside a wilting sunflower vase, a trace of the last time Ethan Caldwell tried to reach out. At 36 weeks pregnant, Maya moved slowly, her hand often resting on her belly, where her daughter Grace kicked strongly as if trying to start a conversation. She looked at herself in the mirror, her tired eyes but unwavering determination. Just a few more weeks, my love, she whispered. I will give you a good life. Maya had just returned from her shift at Gabriel's cafe, her feet swollen. She no longer saw Ethan around there. A part of her felt relieved, but there was also a sense of emptiness. After the confrontation with Lauren, when the truth about the lies was exposed, Maya felt vindicated. But her trust in Ethan was still a wound that had not healed. She opened her notebook, sketching a community park, the dream she still held on to, despite her shattered reputation. A gentle knock at the door startled Maya. She opened it, surprised to see Ethan standing there, holding a fresh bouquet of sunflowers, his gaze awkward but sincere. Hi, he said, his voice low. Please let me know if I stop by. Maya hesitated, her hand gripping the doorframe. Ethan, I've told you flowers don't fix anything, she said, but her tone wasn't as sharp as before. I know, Ethan replied, handing her the bouquet. But I remember you once saying, sunflowers make you think of bright things. I wanted to bring a little brightness to you. He paused, his gaze falling on her belly, and to Grace. Maya blinked, surprised that he knew the baby's name. She took the bouquet and invited him in, though her heart remained cautious. "How do you know about Grace?" she asked, sitting on the only armchair in her apartment. Ethan stood, his hands in his pockets, as if afraid to make her uncomfortable. "Dr. Hayes mentioned it when I asked about you. I've been attending a prenatal class and learning about baby care. I want to be prepared, whether you want me there or not." Maya studied him, her eyes searching. She could see the difference. Not just regret, but sincerity. "What are you trying to do, Ethan?" she asked. "What do you want from me?" Ethan took a deep breath and sat on the edge of the chair across from her. "I want to prove that I'm not the person who abandoned you. I was wrong not to trust you, to let fear destroy us. I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I want to be a part of Grace's life. And if you allow me, I want to earn your trust back." Maya sat silently, her hand resting on her belly, feeling Grace's strong kick. "Trust isn't easy to rebuild," she said. "You chose to believe Lauren instead of me. I don't know if I can allow myself to be vulnerable again." "I understand," Ethan replied, his eyes never leaving her. "But I'm working on myself, through therapy, to know why I let fear overpower love. I want to be the man worthy of you and Grace." They sat in silence, the air heavy, but not tense. Maya looked at the sketches on the table, then at Ethan. "Do you remember the days when we talked about building the future?" she said softly. "I still sketch, even knowing that maybe no one will ever make them. But it keeps me going." Ethan looked at the drawings, recognizing the skillful lines. "They're amazing, Maya. The city needs ideas like these, and I'll do everything to help you regain what you've lost." Maya shook her head. "Not with money, Ethan. Justice isn't a check. I need time to see that you're truly changing." Ethan nodded, his gaze sincere. "I will wait, no matter how long it takes." Suddenly, Maya winced, her hand clutching her stomach as a strong contraction hit. "Oh!" she gasped, trying to breathe deeply. Ethan immediately stood up, alarmed. "Are you okay? Is it Grace?" Maya nodded, breathing through the pain. "Probably just Braxton Hicks. They've been coming all day, but now they're stronger." She tried to stand, but another contraction made her stagger. Ethan supported her, his hands shaking but gentle. "We need to go to the hospital," he said, his voice firm. "This isn't fake anymore. It's probably just—" Maya started, but another sharp pain cut her off. She nodded, allowing Ethan to grab the hospital bag she had already prepared. He helped her down 3 flights of stairs, stopping each time she had a contraction, whispering, "You can do it, Maya. I'm here." In the car, Ethan drove quickly to Mercy General, holding Maya's hand through every contraction. "I'm here, okay?" he said, his voice steady. "No matter what, I'm not going anywhere." Maya looked at him, her gaze wavering between fear and an unfamiliar sense of safety. She didn't feel entirely alone for the first time in 8 months. "Thank you," she whispered, gripping his hand tightly. The nurse wheeled Maya into the delivery room at the hospital, connecting her to the monitors. Dr. Clara Hayes checked in, saying, "This could be preterm labor. We'll monitor you, but Grace could come early." Ethan stood beside her, never taking his eyes off Maya, his gaze filled with worry and love. Maya looked at him, feeling Grace kick as if responding to her father's voice. "You can stay," she said, her voice small, but clear for Grace. Ethan nodded, tears glistening. "For Grace, and for you." The penthouse in Manhattan, once the home of Ethan Caldwell and Maya Johnson, was now filled with a new warmth. A small room was painted a soft yellow, with a wooden crib and animal-themed paintings on the walls, becoming Grace's room, the 3-week-old baby with bright eyes and a laugh like a bell. Maya sat in the armchair, breastfeeding Grace, her gaze gentle but still wary as she looked at Ethan. He stood at the door, holding a bottle of milk, his eyes never leaving the two of them. "You need to rest," Ethan said, his voice soft. "Let me feed her this time." Maya nodded, handing Grace to him. She oversaw Ethan cradle the baby, gently supporting her head, whispering soft lullabies. He had learned quickly, from changing diapers to soothing Grace to sleep at midnight. His devotion made the protective wall inside Maya waver, but she still feared. 8 months ago, he had shattered her trust. Could she trust him again? After Grace fell asleep, Maya stood up and walked to the kitchen table where she had laid out her architectural sketches. She said, "I've been considering returning to work, but I'm not looking at Ethan. It's a small, sustainable housing project, but I want to try." Ethan smiled, his eyes sparkling with pride. "You'll do it, Maya. Your ideas always change everything." "How can I help?" Maya shook her head. "I need to do it on my own. My reputation was destroyed after the divorce. I must prove that I'm still Maya Johnson, the architect, not the victim of a scandal." Ethan nodded, respecting her decision. He knew she didn't want his financial help or his name, but he had quietly reached out to Maya's old colleagues, sending them evidence of Lauren Bennett's deceit to help restore her reputation. He hadn't told Maya, afraid she would think he was trying to repurchase her. Maya started anew with a small project, a community center in Brooklyn, in collaboration with a nonprofit organization. She worked during the day while Grace slept and met with clients over video calls. One afternoon, she stood before the review board, presenting her design. She said, "This is a space for everyone, with renewable energy and a green playground," her voice confident. "It's not just a building, it's a community." The board clapped, and a former industry colleague recognized her. "Maya Johnson," he said, smiling. "I heard about your story. You've come back strong." Maya smiled, feeling a lightness in her heart. Her reputation was slowly being restored, step by step. Though not present, Ethan heard about the presentation from a mutual colleague. As Maya left the meeting room, he watched from afar, her eyes bright like the day they first met. He didn't approach, only sent a message. "I know you can do it. So proud of you." One evening, Maya found Ethan in Grace's room, sitting in the armchair, holding their daughter as she slept. The moonlight filtered through the window, casting a soft glow on them. Maya stood in the doorway, her heart racing. "What did you tell her?" she asked, her voice quiet. Ethan looked up, smiling. "I made a big mistake, but I'll spend my life making up for it. I love her and her mother more than anything." Maya felt tears welling up. She stepped in and sat beside him. "Ethan, I'm scared," she admitted. "I want to believe you, but I'm afraid of getting hurt again. Grace deserves a family, but I don't know if I can let you close." Ethan gently placed Grace in the crib, turning to Maya with sincere eyes. "I know, Maya. I destroyed your trust, and don't expect you to forgive me immediately. But I'm working daily, through therapy and my actions, to become someone you can trust. I'm only asking for a chance to prove it." Maya sat silently, her hand resting on her belly, feeling Grace kick. "Trust isn't easy to rebuild," she said. "You chose to believe Lauren instead of me. I don't know if I can let myself be vulnerable again." "I understand," Ethan replied, his eyes never leaving her. "But I'm working on myself, through therapy, to know why I let fear overpower love. I want to be the man worthy of you and Grace." They sat in silence, the air heavy but not tense. Maya looked at the sketches on the table, then at Ethan. Do you remember the days we talked about building the future? She said softly. I still sketch, even knowing that maybe no one will ever make them. But it keeps me going. Ethan looked at the drawings, recognizing the skill in her strokes. They're amazing, Maya. The city needs ideas like these, and I'll do everything to help you regain what you've lost. Maya shook her head. Not with money, Ethan. Justice isn't a check. I need time to see that you're truly changing. Ethan nodded, his gaze sincere. I will wait, no matter how long it takes. Maya was invited to present at a major architecture conference a few weeks later. She brought Grace, letting her sleep in the stroller beside her. Her presentation, about the future of sustainable housing, was warmly received. A potential investor approached, offering funding to help her reopen her architecture firm. You're a talent, he said, and your story is inspiring. Maya returned to the penthouse, her heart full of hope. She found Ethan playing with Grace, teaching her to hold a rattle. She said they invited me to start the firm again, her voice excited. They believe in me, Ethan. After everything, they still believe. Ethan stood up, hugging her, but paused when he saw her stiffen. I'm so proud of you, Maya, he said, pulling back. This is what you deserve. Maya looked at him, seeing the patience in his eyes. She said softly, Thank you for not giving up. Not for me, but for Grace. For both of you, Ethan corrected, his eyes never leaving hers. The rooftop garden of the penthouse in Manhattan gleamed under the early winter sun, with ivy winding around the railing and sunflowers in full bloom. Maya Johnson stood in a simple white dress, holding Grace, now 1 year old, in her arms. The little girl babbled, grabbing her mother's braided hair, her bright eyes sparkling like Ethan Caldwell's. Ethan stood opposite, in a navy blue suit, his gaze fixed on Maya, full of love and gratitude. This was their second wedding, unassuming, with only family and close friends, but filled with meaning. Sterling Piton, Ethan's lawyer and close friend, stood as the officiant. Today, he said, his voice warm, we witness not just a wedding, but a promise between two people who have risen from the darkness to find the light. Ethan, Maya, are you ready? Ethan took Maya's hand, their fingers intertwined. I promise to choose trust over fear, he said, his voice firm. We need to fight for ourselves and never let doubt cloud our love. I promise to love you, Maya, with all the courage you deserve. Maya smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. She replied, I promise to be patient with your growth and honest with my emotions. I promise to build a family stronger than what we've lost. Grace giggled, touching both faces as if agreeing with her parents' vows. As they exchanged rings and kissed, applause rang out, mingling with Grace's laughter. Sterling raised his glass. To Ethan and Maya, he said, shows that true love doesn't end with happily ever after, but begins with the promise. Let's try again, and do it better this time. 5 years later, the rooftop garden had become Grace's favorite playground, now a lively 5-year-old chasing fireflies in the evening light. Now the director of Johnson Designs, a renowned architecture firm specializing in sustainable projects, Maya sat on the bench, watching her daughter with pride. Her company had built dozens of community centers nationwide, and her reputation had been fully restored, thanks to successful projects and the truth about Lauren Bennett's deceit coming to light. Ethan, sitting beside Maya, held her hand. He had changed, no longer the man afraid of losing her, but a devoted father and a patient husband. He continued therapy with Dr. Clara Hayes, learning to love without letting fear control him. His company, Caldwell Technologies, sponsored Maya's projects, creating a powerful partnership between technology and architecture. Have you ever considered what would have happened if Lauren hadn't interfered? Ethan asked, watching Grace dance under the moonlight. Maya tilted her head, thinking. Sometimes, she admitted. But if it weren't for those challenges, we wouldn't be as strong as we are now. I think we're better. Parents, partners, and ourselves. Ethan smiled, pulling her closer. I don't thank the pain, but I thank the healing. I thank you for giving me a second chance. Grace ran over, tugging on both their hands. Mom, Dad, come catch fireflies with me, she shouted, her eyes as bright as stars. Maya and Ethan stood hand in hand, joining their daughter's game. Their laughter echoed through the garden, mingling with the flickering light of the fireflies. The years hadn't been easy. There were days when Maya woke up with the old fear, wondering if Ethan would doubt her again. There were nights when Ethan lay awake, blaming himself for the mistakes of the past. But they had learned to communicate, sharing all their fears and hopes. They held family nights, where Maya told Grace stories about the buildings she designed, while Ethan taught her how to code simple games. Every moment was a testament to love rebuilt on trust. One evening, when Grace had fallen asleep, Maya and Ethan sat on the sofa, looking at her new sketches. Maya said, I'm thinking of a school in Harlem. Her eyes bright. It is a place for kids like Grace, with a green playground and smart classrooms. Ethan kissed her forehead. I'll sponsor it, he said. But this time, let me be your partner, not just the sponsor. Maya smiled, leaning against him. Partners in everything, she said. In work, in family, in love. They sat there in comfortable silence, knowing their love wasn't a fairy tale, but a true journey full of challenges and strength. Sound asleep in her room, Grace was the living proof of that love.